Good afternoon, good evening, LinkedIn friends, Valley First Nation. Welcome to another episode of AI Native Context. Here with Klemen and Casey. It is Tuesday, August 25th, 2026. Talking about the last mile today. How are we doing? How are we doing today?
I feel very Olympic. I feel we'll be running something.
Could be. Hopefully not against any robots. Huh?
I just saw that. Gosh, no. It will be a different mile.
Oof, no. I'm feeling a bit tired, but Chris talked to me this morning. I was in a weird place. I just feel like I've been going all day.
It's been an interesting day. A lot of excitement around the Hubcest announcement. And I'm going to get better at working that into almost all the content this week, obviously. But today we are talking about this last mile problem. While StreamYard says it's having trouble streaming to LinkedIn, so there's another last mile for you. But when I brought that up, Casey, you said almost all of your work is last mile now.
So I've heard the term last mile. You said a lot of people talk about it. I believe that's probably true, and I'm just not listening to them. I've heard the term before, but I wouldn't say I feel like I hear people talk about it a ton, or I've thought about it a ton. But once you were mentioning the last mile, I was like, oh yeah, that's most of what I do now. I have run one marathon in my life, everyone. So I feel like AI often does, or I will say AI, plus I do have some people that work for me. So a combination of both human and AI assistants doing, 25 miles, and then I swoop in and do that last mile of work. But it's kind of tiring. The last mile is a tiring mile sometimes.
Nailed it.
We often have a discussion internally that I think that goes back even to software development, pure software development, even before AI. It takes the same amount of energy or focus to review someone's code and fix it than to just write it from scratch. So yeah, I imagine how tired you are, even though if you're just running the last mile. I'm translating that to what everyone is saying, how to prevent AI slop, how to prevent AI sound like AI, and it's all that last mile as a term which covers all of that.
Yeah, and I guess the reason we're here today is we've been talking about all the prep that goes in before, and how when not done well. And I don't think you're wrong, Casey, in terms of, I'm sure outside of AI vibe coding circles, people don't think in these terms of last mile. Instead of just get the email done and I check it, right? Well, the checking is the last mile part, and how much do you have to redo? The harder that mile, or the longer that mile gets, very quickly. And it's always been a thing for me, at least when working with systems. If you ever think about those rabbit holes that you'll go down when you're understanding data, you're like, all right, let me just troubleshoot this thing. They haven't been able to pay their invoice, and let me go fix it. And they're like, oh, that's not right. Let me go look at this other system. Oh, there's right. Let me go look at these 12 email threads to try and figure out. And all of a sudden, you're running the entire race back. literally in all of the miles just so you can finish, right? Which, again, when you try to one shot with AI, when you don't learn from that and you just show up the next day to like do it all over again, because it does feel a little bit easier in the moment, right? We don't necessarily know how much tokens we're spending. It's just we don't have to think as much, and we like that on some level. It very quickly adds up to what we're seeing at companies, like what we're not getting anywhere. Like we're accomplishing the same things, the same level of value, and our people are kind of checking out while we do it. How do you like? Maybe it would help. Like, I think another orange morning, like that process has been very interesting to watch happen for me. So we're starting to get more content out than ever before, but it still took like this gradual build of process, right? But you've always been there as the last mile. So I think it would be helpful if you can talk about how that last mile has maybe gotten shorter, but also just moved as more gets created. And then unmute while you do that. So
Thank you. That's the last mile. So when we started turning the video content into blogs, it started as I would take the transcript and the video. I think it started in Claude directly. Then I was able to move it into Content Remix. But really, even with Content Remix, I was still like editing it with Claude because Claude had skill. Like I had memory. I don't think I had skills at the time. I think I was just relying on memory. Like you do this every day, just do it the same, which Chris is laughing because he knows skills work better than memory.
They also were a thing before memory, I think.
Well, I didn't know how to set up a skill. So I was relying on like context within a project, really.
You had files and examples that you knew what they had. And when we brought it into HubSpot, like Content Remix, and that was way before all of the context settings and customized context that you can set up now. So everything had to be built into the prompt, right? Which was sometimes good and sometimes not.
Yeah. So that's how I was like originally doing it. And then how we've now we have a skill. So that helps in Claude. Now Claude is hooked up to the website that we publish the blogs to. So I don't have to even, like I used to have to copy and paste. And I would make it that I would have Claude output the HTML for the copy, and I would just paste it into HubSpot. But now we have it connected, so I don't even have to like paste anything. We have like really shortened that last mile. So where I used to block off an hour on my calendar for every day for the blog creation. Sometimes I would take the full hour, sometimes I wouldn't, but like an hour was enough time. And I would usually have some sort of back and forth around how did they refer to this person or that person. And then at some point I was like, stop referring to people, you keep getting it wrong. But now there's just a Claude skill that I type. I actually was just talking to a client today about this, that I type in three characters, And then in the background, all this stuff happens behind the scenes for me, where it takes the transcript. I do still download it and put the transcript into HubSpot, but Claude is able to find the transcript from HubSpot, find the video. It even uses speaker attribution. It looks at the frame of the video when it's taking its quote and to help figure out who is talking, which I think is funny. It doesn't always get it right, obviously, but like it tries to. And I still paste in the updates, but I use Claude, the Chrome connection of Claude, to make a table of all the updates. A lot of times when Chris starts sharing his screen at the end of the show, I start that command. So by the time the show's over, all the updates are.
So proud. I'm so proud right now. Oh man.
I wanted to ask if you're proud. You took it.
I mean, come on. It's like stuff happening, like AI doing work while we're on the shows. But Madeline said something interesting today because she has recently been unlocked herself and just started publishing her first pages on the Another Orange Morning website, which is very exciting. But what she said is going to get us into this movement of the last mile, which I want to hear from you on, Klemen, but then bring it back to Casey, because now we're doing more stuff that we never did before. And I asked Madeline, I said, are you feeling powerful yet? And she said, I will feel powerful when the list of things I want to do gets smaller and not bigger. And I said, yeah, that's not how this works, is it, Klemen?
No. The analogy that I started to going back, and when my co-founder brought it up, was when there was the first flight from East Coast to the West Coast. So you could go from Boston to San Francisco in 3-4 hours instead of 6-7 days. People thought, oh, now I could lay down for 5 days on a coast and then show up in San Francisco because I have 5 days left because I just shortened the time. But it's not. It didn't happen like that. You just you could travel more. So you could be tomorrow in San Diego and then the other day in Detroit and so forth. And I feel it's the same here. It's not that we are working less. It's just the amount of work you can do as a one person in a day is just enormously bigger. The thing I am still kind of struggling with is now it's even more burdening to our brain to have all that in our mind. In the past, you had one task you could work on for 3 hours. Now you're expected to finish that between 5 other cloud sessions. So you need to have all those 5 cloud sessions in your context memory in your brain so you can deliver them. One small settings update I just did in my terminal is whenever there's an active cloud session, it changes the background. So instead of black background, I have white background. So I don't need to monitor my terminal with all the sessions opened, which ones are running, already stopped. So just that I can offload, okay, this session is running and will keep running for the next 20 minutes. And then I can go to do that last mile or review or coordinate the next steps. So yes, we are all, I think, doing more of those last miles than before. And definitely the type of work shifted because of all that.
Yeah.
I think I I wonder if you guys struggle with this. Maybe you guys are just better AIers than me. But like I struggle with when I'm doing so much last mile stuff and I'm shifting between stuff. I know I've said this before. Like I forget things that I have in motion all the time. Like it's very common. I start the whole Another Orange Morning blog process pretty soon after the show ends. Pretty much, I try to do it as soon as the show ends. Sometimes Chris and I talk after the show, and I'll try to like get that going while we're like chit chatting. But then sometimes I forget to go back, especially when like that process takes a while. Like I set the command off and then it'll take 5 or more minutes. I mean, which is sounds stupid, like that's not that much time. But it is long enough that I'm not just like sitting there waiting for a response. And so I do find that like to stick to the last mile, like it almost takes me longer to run the last mile because while I'm running it, I dart off to this other direction for a minute and like.
And then you come back and they've asked you one question. And you're like, man, that could have been done 5 hours ago.
Exactly.
Now I gotta wait.
Yeah, and sometimes sometimes the question is like, who said this? And if I had read that question 5 hours ago, I would have known who said that on the show. But now it's been 5 hours, and I'm like, I don't know who did say that.
And then one last mile become 5 miles.
Yeah, or don't finish. Like
or don't finish
the race. In this case, or you feel like you have to restart the whole race. Honestly, and what's interesting is like, again, this is why we gotta figure out a way to measure capability, like increases better. In terms of that's usually where the last mile moves to, like to the thing you've always wanted to do, to the thing you've never had time for, and now you have access to this additional capability. Right, that's what's happening with us right now, in that like the distribution and giving people clips, right, has always been like on the wish list but never actually happening, and now it's happening. Right, so it's a different mechanism now that we've trusted. By the way, if you're watching, there's a bunch of agents involved in what Casey's saying, so there's so much context underneath the surface of what's actually happening.
So this happens all the time where like whenever I talk about what I do, Chris will be like, I'm so proud of you, Casey. And I'm like, proud of you, Chris. I didn't do Chris built all this stuff and now all I do is type 4 letters in and then I
yeah, /AOM is are the characters that Casey types in. But that's not how it was like for these 9 months. Like that command was the result of like 3 commands, that were generated, and agents were being brought in to run that. And again, it's not different from like human teams that are very serious about media production. Like it always surprises me, like all the credits in the movies, like I'm getting much more appreciation for why all of those people exist, right? When you hear about like real media networks, how many people are like, there's a person for clips, there's a person for this. Like that's how we got to the point where, the transcript is being managed, it's being clipped, somebody's taking a screenshot of the screen and they're checking against each other. But like it's always, I think in B2B, it's always been the case where it's like marketing team, like go make some videos. Marketing? Like what? Why do you need so much headcount or resources? Like what? You can't just go over into Descript and just like put it in there and it's done, right? Especially when you're trying to get YouTube shorts that change frame every second. Like, right? The amount of time and effort that people put into that is, not insignificant. And how do we measure? Like, do we even want to limit the last mile? Is a question that comes to mind. And I would think we would only want to if we don't understand the value that it's creating, right? Like in our case, as we make more clips and they get in the hands of the guests that then share, like there's a whole new go-to-market mechanism like happening there that most teams like dream about, right? And that's because of the work done to make the last mile like available like to us over there. It's like instead of just running marathons, we now have the capability to run ultras, right?
I would say we shouldn't limit. I mean, for every task you will limit as an IC, how much effort or attention you want to spend on that, and that feeling of how much for a specific task you need to, how long that last mile is different. If it's an internal note or a raw transcript, it's fine, whatever it is. If it's something that goes to another person, which will then share on on LinkedIn, or if it's a deck that you want to present in front of a customer, you want to have that last mile being as long as it needs to be, so the person presenting that feels comfortable. I think that last mile should be longer for anything customer facing, because you want to leave that room, which is then making the difference between AI slop and narrowing down. AI, as we all know, it can produce a really long RFP if you want, like 8 pages long, but there is only 1 page synthesized, and to get from 8 pages to that 1 page, this is the hard work. But if someone gets that 8 pages, it feels like this is a slop. No one even reads through that before I got it, so I now need to give to my cloud to make a summary so that I can whatever. Where if someone took the time, whatever it needs to get from 8 pages to maybe 2 pages, we wouldn't then spend an hour going through the document together and trying to figure out what Claude thought it should be there. So I think there should be space, and we shouldn't limit that effort. We should encourage it more than limit it.
Yeah. Did this come up at all? You just had an AirOps hug today, right? With
in a way, yeah.
And Davis.
Yeah. Like, test it until you're satisfied. Do as many iterations as you want. That's why also, HubSpot is not charging you for the test runs, because this is the important part. Another thing, building agents like around data enrichment and data cleanup and so forth, as we see from our work, it's not that get an agent to work on 20 perfect samples. You'll get to that in the first prompt. But to cover all the edge cases, you need to test it on more than 20 perfectly polished records. And this, if you don't do it, when you put it in production, you will say, oh, that agent is not working. But it's not that agent is not working or AI is not working. You just, you didn't properly test it and validate the output. So yeah, even building agents, you need to have that time dedicated for that.
Right. Well, for sure. And that's where like the last mile may not always be the last, mile. I think there's lots of opportunity usually inside of systems like HubSpot to put the person if we can keep stretching this like marathon analogy, like
This is our new running podcast slash.
like when you take the gels or stop at the water station, like if you don't do that at the
We've
right
lost some
time,
people.
you're gonna hit a wall and everything's gonna hurt after that, right?
Mhm.
And those moments, like this concept of just testing until you feel good, it's almost always a trap when other humans are involved in making sure the thing is working, because then you're asking them
Mhm.
to come and do some last mile work when they were not involved in the race at all. They didn't get a map. Like they don't know where the finish line is. And you're like, hey, come in and check this. Like, so we're gonna put it right on the record. All you're gonna have to do is click the button, you get this report, and then you can send it. And it's so rare that that's the case. Like, can we give them the context that the agent's going to need? In this case, we're talking about custom agents in HubSpot, like, so that the human, it's like the last mile before you hand off, like, to an agent, instead of checking all the work, at the end, because those are the moments where like 95% of the value got created by this like long run. And then you're like, man, there's this one piece was off and I can see it right here. Like I'm on the record. I could have solved it before we even, but I wasn't asked to. That stuff happens all the time. And it's like, if we can't help folks, like I think that comes out in the 20 tests if you do the tests with the other humans. Like instead of thinking like, unfortunately, traditionally admins often do, it's like, all right, I'm going to build it and test it and get it all ready for you. And then it's going to be ready. And then you can just start using it. That doesn't happen in practice, at least where I can see. Meanwhile, you have Breeze and these conversations with AI that can be right next to you. And you match all of this human expertise together, you get to that finish line much, much faster.
Mm-hmm. I think you bring up like one thing I struggle with doing that last mile work is, and I know I've talked about this before, like that human in the loop concept. And that's, I guess, what I mean by when I was talking earlier about it's easy for me to get pulled away. It's also because of that easy for me to feel like I'm like out of the loop in the work that's happening. And then it gets passed back to me. And then a lot of times it gets passed back to me to like present. And I might understand like the top layer, but then once we get like into the trenches, I start to be like, well, I don't know how does that work? Which is fine sometimes. Like it's fine with our blog. Madeline asked me how I wrote our blog, and I was like, I don't know. I just typed this command in, and like, but in reality, Chris did all this work behind the scenes to make it possible. And so sometimes I think for me, I'm still figuring out, because this is still pretty new to all of us, is when it's okay for me to just dart into the race at the last mile and just finish and have way less sweat than everyone else. And like, it's cool. And when I do really need to be like, maybe even biking along next to the support team.
Sometimes I feel the last mile can be much shorter if you take the time at the beginning to give that additional context you wouldn't. I think we're discussing a few shows back regarding the transcripts and the to-dos that are coming out of them, which are typically useless. That small few bullet points after the meeting that you provide along with a transcript, you as a human being on a call, how you understood the conversation, the frame, and so forth, by giving that on top of the raw transcript to AI asking to make a summary, to do this, whatever, is what makes the huge difference. Then you will have 5 proposed follow-up tasks, which would be reviewed literally in a minute or two. Otherwise, you would have 10 totally useless tasks being proposed to be created. So I often feel if you give a space to provide that context, which AI doesn't have upfront, the same goes, I think, for blog posts and all the content. If you just throw one raw idea into Claude and ask it to just do it, or if you would say, no, but this is my point of view, or this is the flavor, or the angle I want to have, the first output will be way better than it would be just making that one small prompt.
Yeah. Chris is thinking, which is either he agrees or disagrees. I'm not sure.
Claude summarized prior to the show that we're arguing on the show. So let's see how that argue goes.
Right. No, the nuance of all this, like when you change the humans that are involved, like the last mile that they're capable of doing, like changes. Mm-hmm. And so trying to develop systems and processes that don't involve them until the very end, or not enough in the beginning. I mean, I remember watching George as he started to create content, like naturally off of the back of 12 years of doing it. I mean, his whole life. If you think about like pastor sermons and stuff like that, like he's been creating content forever. And as soon as he got his hands on AI, he started going at tone and voice to the point where all the work went into the planning and he didn't have to validate and verify very much like at the end. And that was like, oh, in the days when we first started hearing about AI slop, I'm like, how dare you not put all your effort into the back end and reviewing and editing. But when you get good enough in the front, you put yourself in a position to, delegate to others, but also delegate to agents. And I think that's the other part of when you experience this last mile friction. It's often not that hard to turn it into like improved processes, or we need another agent to come in so that I don't have to deal with that, friction anymore, so we don't get caught off guard. Or it's like, okay, now that we've done this, we can do social posts now. It can't just go to any agent. If none of the agents were designed for social posting, that's probably a bad idea. Do I want to spend my time on social? Maybe, if I want to be there to engage as I post. But all of these, like when we talk about judgment and taste and nuance, it's like, where can you be to enable the relationship, with humans, I think is a good way to think about whether it's human to human inside your org or internal customers to external customers. Like the last mile should be focused on that stuff, right? Was this helpful, or was this just like a rant, like for a little bit?
Probably a rant. I don't think I've solved any problems. No, I think the last mile can get easier. I think helping set things up in the beginning, whether that's with AI or other humans, it's the same, is the most important part to when you get to that last mile, it feeling, as close to ready as it can be.
My lesson learned takeaway is you need to put an effort and time and iterations to shorten that last mile. It's just, you cannot do that in a day. Like, you said, like Chris was iterating on that 3 letters skill now, not in a day. It was, days and weeks of processing and different shows being, I wish it was. Don't say Chris, no. But I cannot.
This is why I laugh, right? Because the iteration happened with the other commands. When I showed that command to Casey for the first time, I said, I haven't run this yet. I think it should work, though. I've run something like it for Value First AI Daily with Nico, but Another Orange Morning has different needs. There's a whole different data model underneath that. So all the agent team had is like, hey, I want a command for these specific shows that are running all the time that I don't have to use one for post-production and then clips and then transcripts. Like, it's got to be all together, right? And the needs of that show, very different from the needs of the AI Daily show. I wasn't the one processing the content after, right? So me thinking that I could somehow prepare it in a way that, could just be done for Casey, like, one, just is not realistic. 2, it also limits the innovation that Casey can do to where she takes it to the next level and starts getting clips ready and then is capable of taking it over to the Road to Unbound as well, because she was a part of that process and has added that capability layer, right? So I think it's the goal, right, of not necessarily shortening, but like the difference between driving across the river, flying across the river, and swimming across the river, right? Like, as the preparation and expertise and capability needed for that last mile dramatically changes in those 3 cases, right? And so in HubSpot case and the agent case, it's like, do we want to finish and have it just ready, or do we want to enable our folks? Like the example we did with Breeze Assistant today was explaining something. Like, Breeze helped me explain this topic. And I would love for folks to use the hell out of Breeze Assistant for doing that, right? To actually enable our teams to understand, how the system is used, what context is, why associations are important, all that stuff that have been traditionally bad, that we've proven we can't really just plug and play it, can't out of the box it for them. They own the relationship. They need to own the relationship, and they have all the context, right, at the end of the day. So I'm just going to end it, I think, because I don't know where to stop now. Speaking of last mile, I don't know. No, not speaking of last mile. AI native context, it's here. We're going to keep talking about whatever's on our mind each week to just know you're not alone in these challenges as we all learn how to work with AI, how to get more, but also how to know what we're getting. With some of these outcomes, I think is very important for most teams right now. So as always, Klemen, Casey, thank you so much. And we'll see everybody next Tuesday.
Thank you.